Man, I came here to win rings, not babysit anyone.
One message in the team group chat just broke the Lakers wide open. One leaked message. That's all it took. A single text dropped into the Lakers team group chat that sent shockwaves through the entire organization. And once those words got out, nothing was ever the same again. Agents fighting in tunnels. Coaches getting confronted in locker rooms. Veterans turning on their own teammate. A superstar refusing to shake another player's hand on live television. And at the center of every single one of these explosions, the same family drama that's been quietly poisoning this franchise from the inside. The story you've been told about the Lakers is wrong. The real story is messier, more personal, and more explosive than anything you've seen on the court. And it all traces back to one night in January, one tunnel, one fight, and one message that changed everything. Let's set the scene. January 13th, 2026. The Lakers had just lost to the Sacramento Kings. The score wasn't close. The performance was a mess. But the real disaster wasn't on the court. It was in the tunnel afterward, where witnesses say two of the most powerful agents in basketball almost came to blows over something that had nothing to do with that night's game and everything to do with money, power, and a father's obsession with keeping his son in the rotation. On one side was Rich Paul, the influential agent representing the James family. On the other side was the powerhouse agent representing Austin Reaves, a player who was coming up on a $200 million max contract. And according to everyone who was there, Reaves' agent wasn't waiting around to exchange pleasantries. He was furious because he had just connected the dots between a podcast comment, a roster manipulation strategy, and a coordinated effort to trade away his client just to preserve a rookie spot in the lineup. Security had to physically separate them. That's how heated it got. But here's the thing. While the cameras were focused on that confrontation, something even more significant was happening behind the locker room doors. LeBron James had reportedly cornered the head coach and was confronting him about a secret arrangement that had been quietly put in place months earlier. An arrangement the coaching staff had just publicly violated. And the contents of that arrangement, once they started leaking, exposed something about this organization that franchises simply don't recover from easily. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to November 15th. The Lakers played the Milwaukee Bucks that night. On the surface, it looked like a big win. The young Slovenian superstar went off for 41 points and carried the team to victory. But if you look past the final score and examine the rotation decisions, that's where you see the beginning of everything falling apart. That night, Bronny James started the game but was on the court for only 10 minutes. He went scoreless, 0 points, 0 impact. And during those 10 minutes, the team's net rating plummeted to a minus 4.2. Think about that number. The team won the game. But whenever Bronny was on the floor, they were getting outscored, badly. They weren't winning with him on the court. They were winning despite him being out there. This put the head coach in an impossible position. And insiders say he finally hit his limit during that Bucks game. He reportedly lost his composure on the sidelines, screaming at Bronny to shoot the ball before pulling him from the game for good. And that one decision, that coaching instinct overriding a private agreement, cracked the entire foundation of what had been a carefully constructed arrangement. Because here's what the league whispers have been saying for months. The head coach was reportedly brought into this organization with an understanding, a quiet, never-spoken publicly understanding, that Bronny James would receive meaningful minutes alongside the team's superstar centerpiece. The idea was to develop him in real game situations, to position him for a future with this franchise. It was supposed to be a development project disguised as a championship run. But when the opposing team started deliberately hunting Bronny on every single possession, exploiting him as a defensive liability on repeat, the head coach's competitive instincts took over. He realized he couldn't protect the project and win the game at the same time. So he made the right basketball decision, and that decision started a war. The young superstar, meanwhile, had already been watching all of this from the floor. And he'd had enough. He sat down for an interview after that Bucks game and essentially told the world exactly where he stood. He said he came to Los Angeles to win championships, not to babysit anyone. If someone needed development time, that's what the developmental league was for. If this story about the Lakers touches your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. That one comment turned the locker room into a war zone. The veteran wasn't even playing that night due to injury, but he reportedly went into full protective mode regardless, confronting the coaching staff for breaking the arrangement. This wasn't just a disagreement between a coach and a player. It was the moment two very different visions of what this team was supposed to be finally collided head-on. And Rich Paul saw what was happening. His client's leverage was slipping. So he went on offense. He went public with the suggestion that if the team wanted to solve their defensive problems, they should consider trading Austin Reaves for a defensive anchor. He framed it as a basketball argument. But everyone who heard it understood what it really was. a warning shot. A message to the young superstar that his closest ally on the team was not untouchable. A way of saying, fall in line or watch your support system disappear. Reeves' agent heard that suggestion and walked straight into that tunnel ready to confront Rich Paul directly. Because his client was sitting on a $200 million max contract negotiation, and someone was out here publicly discussing trading him away to protect a family member's roster spot. That's what triggered the confrontation that witnesses described as one of the most intense agent altercations anyone had seen in years. But all of this still traces back to that leaked message. Because before any of the tunnel drama, before the coaching confrontations, before the podcast shots at Reeves, there was a moment that changed how the superstar felt about this entire organization on a personal level. A moment that went from surprising to infuriating once he understood what it meant. Go back to February 1st, 2025, the day a blockbuster trade completely reshuffled the roster. According to reports, the trade was supposed to be handled carefully, with the front office informing players directly. But instead, Bronny James saw the breaking news tweet and immediately dropped it into the team group chat. That's how the veterans found out. Through a group chat message from a rookie, including the player being traded, who had given everything to this franchise, battled through injuries, anchored the defense for years, and helped win a championship. He found out he was being shipped out because a 20-year-old forwarded a tweet. His response was cold. Publicly, he kept things professional. Privately, insiders said he was devastated and furious. And the domino effect from that single text message never stopped falling. The young superstar who came in as part of that trade walked into a locker room that was already fractured. He walked into an organization where a quiet family agreement was shaping rotation decisions. He walked into a situation where the player who rejected joining a veteran's brand 5 years earlier was now being asked to coexist peacefully with that same veteran's son. And every day he had to put on the shoes of the brand that veteran had spent his entire career trying to outshine. Because here's the backstory that makes everything make more sense. Back in 2020, the veteran had been pitching a major shoe company on his own sub-brand. He wanted to build his own kingdom, just like the greatest who came before him. And he had one specific player in mind to be the face of that brand. The young Slovenian superstar. He made calls. He announced it publicly in interviews. He was certain he could sign him. The young superstar said no. He went and signed with the competing brand instead. The brand that belonged to the greatest player of all time, the one the veteran had spent 20 years trying to surpass. The veteran later admitted publicly that being turned down would haunt him a little bit. And in 2026, that haunting had apparently turned into something much harder to manage. By late November 2025, the tension was so visible that cameras caught it in real time. After a whistle during a game, the superstar walked toward the veteran and extended his hand for a simple low five. The most basic interaction between teammates. The veteran looked directly at the outstretched hand and walked past it without acknowledgement. Deliberately. Visibly. On camera. That wasn't a missed handshake. That was 5 years of rejection and bruised ego finally breaking the surface. The veteran wasn't looking at a teammate anymore. He was looking at the player who had turned down his brand, taken over his team, and was now being celebrated as the face of the franchise in his own city. By the time the trade deadline arrived in February 2026, the front office was paralyzed. Caught between making moves to help the superstar compete for a championship and protecting the arrangement that had been quietly running things behind the scenes. They ended up making a move that felt underwhelming given what was actually needed. Veterans in the know described it as a missed opportunity at best and a deliberate choice to prioritize the family arrangement at worst.